On May 11, 1995, the Sega Saturn found its way out in the United States, in a surprise launch that shocked both retailers and consumers alike. Completely out of the blue, Sega had ditched its original September launch plans, and instead made the hardware and its games available at select retailers. For $399, you could get the Saturn complete with the pack-in fighting game Virtua Fighter. While this is often cited as a terrible move that crippled the hardware's chances in the long term, I remember the raw excitement of such an unexpected development. The Saturn was available much earlier than originally anticipated, and there were now 6 game titles available with full English localizations. It's true that the thunder of the surprise launch was stolen by Sony and their $299 announcement for its upcoming PlayStation. But you have to remember that there was no internet back then, and it took a while for that news to circulate down through game stores, publications, and eventually the public at large. For a brief period, it was truly an exciting time, and it looked like Sega wasn't messing around wanting to make sure its 32-bit console was taken seriously. That got me to thinking that I should cover the US launch games and regional exclusives for the North American Saturn's 30th anniversary. We are going to give them all ratings based on a 5-star system. Was any of that stuff worth playing? Let's find out. We are going to start with the 6 launch games that were available. These games had the unenviable job of satisfying consumer interest for months. That's because after the surprise May launch, the Saturn wouldn't see a steady stream of new titles until September, some 4 months later. We begin with Clockwork Knight, a 2.5D platformer that Sega developed internally to show off what polygons could do with traditional gameplay. It used pre-rendered sprites and a side-scrolling polygon play area to build its world, and for the most part it succeeded. It was a Toy Story game before Toy Story was a thing. I think the biggest missed opportunity here was Sega went with a look that was far too antiquated to appeal to its target audience. These toys looked like something from the 1950s and needed to be more modern and recognizable. That said, this is still a firm 3-star experience. It's good enough to have fun, but I can't say you'll be returning to it again and again. Next up is the arcade conversion a lot of folks were looking forward to, Daytona USA. So much was riding on this game's performance, literally. Early press opinions painted it against Namco's Ridge Racer as proof Sony's console was technically superior, and that influenced public opinion like you wouldn't believe. The reality of the situation was simple. Daytona USA had some technical issues to be sure, but it destroyed Ridge Racer when it came to gameplay. Zipping around its tracks felt even better than the arcade, and the replay value was sky high. I'll knock a star off for its janky draw distance and rough performance, but Daytona USA has it where it counts, and that's the gameplay. 4 stars. If there was one game to have at the Saturn's North American launch, it was Panzer Dragoon. This is straight up a 5-star title without question. It gets nearly everything right about a video game. The visuals were impressive and the soundtrack was god tier. The gameplay was a fantastic polygon-based expansion of the shoot-'em-up genre. The action takes place on a predetermined path, but you get to move around on that path and change your viewpoint to battle enemies 360 degrees around you. I was also impressed with the art style and environments. This world was a mix of beauty and desolation, a tug of war between nature and the evils of conflict. My best friend and I played through it countless times back then, and it's easily one of my best memories in the early Saturn library. The Saturn had a few sports titles at the US launch, the first of which was Pebble Beach Golf Links. This was a fair golf game that didn't do much to take advantage of the console's three-dimensional capabilities. Instead of following the ball when hit, it basically sets camera angles as you make your way towards the green. While each scene is impressively colorful and the animation of the players are nice, the golf games that followed were far more impressive and played a whole lot better. Still, for an early sports game, it got the job done and had pro golfer Craig Stadler giving you tips along the way. Not terrible, not great, but somewhere in between. 3 stars. I don't think that there is another game on the Saturn that gets the disrespect of the original Virtua Fighter. It was judged so harshly at the time for its flat-shaded polygons. The gaming media of the day heaped praise on Battle Arena Toshinden for its visuals, relegating Virtua Fighter as nothing more than an old hat not worth your time. What a load of horse shit, because this played infinitely better in every way. It was a solid attempt at a mixed martial arts fighter that didn't have fireballs or super combos popping off every 2 seconds. It traded that throwaway flashiness for something more technical and unique. You could even argue that the sharp flat-shaded polygons have aged a lot better than the rough textures of the games once seen as vastly superior. I love this gameplay style, and it's easily 5 stars for me.
Ready, go! KO! Fight 2! Ready, go!
Our last launch title in the United States was Worldwide Soccer Sega International Victory Goal Edition. I didn't think this was a bad game at all. The 2-dimensional sprites on the 3-dimensional playfield gives us great performance, and it has enough modes and teams to keep you busy. Of course, later games would absolutely destroy it in features and content, but for a launch title, I think it earns its 3 stars as a very playable experience. Now that we've gone over the launch games, we have an additional 15 titles that were US exclusive for the Saturn. We are going to shoot through these in rapid fire succession and give them each a rating. Let's begin with some sports titles. In mid-1997, Acclaim published All-Star Baseball 97, featuring Frank Thomas for the Saturn. On paper, it has everything you need for a good baseball title. It's got the teams, the players, the stadiums, and the stats, plus a graphics engine that doesn't look bad at all. This one falters a bit with fielding that isn't as intuitive as Sega's offerings, and the AI that stupidly runs the bases unrealistically, allowing you to telegraph their moves. It's still fun and earns 3 stars. Battle Sport was a futuristic sports game that had you using tank-like vehicles to fight for control over an enclosed arena. There you needed to collect the ball and shoot it into a goal to score. While that sounds easy, there are opponents outfitted with weapons and power-ups to keep things interesting. The entire package is about as minimalist as 32-bit releases can get, but the split-screen multiplayer can add some replay value. It's extremely rare due to a very limited release only in the United States in late 1997. But outside of that factoid, this just isn't something I see many people playing again and again. 2 stars. In 1996, Konami brought over Bottom of the Ninth to the Saturn, and I genuinely do not like this game. The visuals are chunky and unrealistic. The batting is overly complicated with its lock-on and pitch mechanics. In theory, it's more realistic, but that doesn't translate to fun in my view. What you are left with is a below-average game of baseball on a console that has many excellent choices. 2 stars. College Slam was a 1996 release from Acclaim. It is essentially the college equivalent to NBA Jam, a 2-on-2 over-the-top arcade basketball game. It differs little from the game that inspired it, and it doesn't have the real-life college players. It does, however, contain the same level of gameplay fun, and that earns it 3 stars. If you're a college fan, this should be right up your alley. There were a number of head-scratching decisions by Sega of America when it came to Saturn development, but none are as worthless and without merit as Congo the Movie. Released in 1996 and developed by Jumping Jack Software, this was supposed to be a gripping first-person shooter side story to the Hollywood film, but it ends up a slog of terrible visuals, garbage level design, and gameplay that is utterly absent of any fun at all. I give this bad joke 1 star only because 0 isn't part of the grading scale. Avoid it at all costs. I want to tell you that the 1997 release of Contra Legacy of War was a banner Saturn release. I want to tell you that it continued the great tradition of run-and-gun excellence. Unfortunately, the developers at Appaloosa Interactive chose to go with an awful camera, uninspired level design, and gameplay that never comes close to any of the previous titles in the series. It could have been a lot worse, of course, but that still doesn't excuse the overall quality. 3 stars for the die-hard fans of the genre, 2 stars for everybody else. In 1995, the Saturn got a port of the Sega CD full-motion video zombie shooter, Corpse Killer, subtitled Graveyard Edition. I might could have recommended this as a good laugh-at title if it supported the Saturn light gun, but it doesn't, leaving a gun game that has to be played with a controller. On the plus side, the video is better, it's full screen, and it has some additional bells and whistles not in the previous release. Those that like to play bad games for laughs will find more to like here. Otherwise, it's 2 stars for most of you. 1995 also saw Digital Pictures release Double Switch, another full-motion video game. This one follows in the steps of Night Trap, where you must trap enemies to progress the story. It stars the late Corey Haim, as well as a number of supporting actors you'll instantly recognize, like the singer Deborah Harry and David Packer from the sci-fi classic V miniseries. Like most of these games, your mileage will depend on your tolerance of the genre, and its reliance on restarting constantly until you memorize the proper actions. It's 2 stars at best, though I admit it's better than most games of its ilk. In 1997, Virgin Interactive published Grand Slam for the Saturn, yet another average baseball game that paled beside Sega's efforts. The visuals here are barely okay, the animation downright bad, the fielding is just serviceable, and it has a weird pitching that uses a golf-style meter. Everything here is done so much better elsewhere, it's a waste of time to try and find any merit through extended play sessions. I mean, it doesn't even have the real MLB teams. 2 stars for the attempt at something different, but it just didn't pan out. 1997 gave us the Saturn's best North American exclusive in the LucasArts-developed Herc's Adventure. This overhead adventure game is loaded with humor, exploration, fantastic co-op, and killer animation. You can choose from 3 mythological characters in their quest to rescue Persephone, the goddess of nature, from the evil Hades. It's a standout title in this weak bunch and definitely is worth looking into. 4 stars. Midway presents Arcade's Greatest Hits as a compilation of classic games by Williams. It includes Bubbles, Defender 1 and 2, Joust, Robotron, and Sinistar. It uses emulation by Digital Eclipse and does a fair job representing the arcade originals. If you have love for these games, it's gonna appeal heavily, especially for the extras that come in the form of history and developer interviews. It gets 3 stars just for that. The year, 1996. The game, NFL 97. The offender, Sega. You have heard me moan about this turd countless times on my channel, so I'll spare you another heart-wrenching history lesson. It gets 1 star for its terrible visuals and completely worthless gameplay. Digital Pictures wasn't above trying its hand at turning any game type into a full motion video experience, and it was American football in 1995's Quarterback Attack. The concept actually works here to a degree and can be fun for a couple of games. The problems begin when you start seeing the same few plays over and over with the same commentary regurgitated along with them. Once that repetition sets in, the novelty is lost, and it leaves us with something you'll likely not want to play very much more. 2 stars. Scud, the Disposable Assassin was supposed to be a fun comic book adaptation for the Saturn. Released in 1997, it had the unorthodox feature of using both the controller and light gun for its gameplay. While that sounds interesting on paper, it just doesn't play out well. The side-scrolling segments lack excitement, and the first-person areas feel painfully repetitious. It ends up leaving you wanting so much more than it gives you, especially with the Saturn library being so much stronger by that point. The idea could have been cool if it had been pulled off better, but otherwise it's just 2 stars. Our last North American exclusive was Ten Pin Alley, a 1997 bowling title by Ask Games. Oh man, is this one hard to recommend. The visuals are butt ugly and the learning curve on the gameplay is nasty difficult. I hated this one for a long time, but if you can adjust to the mechanics, it's not a terrible game. I want to be clear, however, that's a lot easier said than done. 3 stars. There we go guys, our look at the Sega Saturn launch titles in the US, plus the exclusives that would be released in the region. History paints this time as a painful stretch in Sega's legacy, and you know it really isn't wrong. When looking at how the US market was handled from beginning to end, there was not much to admire about it. The early launch wasn't planned well and eventually led to Sega playing catch up with price drops, hurried software releases, and an awful marketing campaign. Sega also left an obscene amount of Saturn software in Japan and never brought them west. Not just obscure games either. Big hit titles that were well known and could have helped immensely were left behind. As the Saturn market began to collapse in the United States, Sega just shut things down completely, leaving the region without any Sega representation for well over a year before the Dreamcast showed up. That meant that Sega had supported its flagship $400 console for just 3 years. A bad look for any company. You can also see from the Saturn platform exclusives that would show up in the United States, third parties weren't exactly anxious to support the machine there. To really put things into perspective, the Sega Genesis outsold the Saturn during its 3 years at retail. A brutal reality that really hammers home just how poorly the Saturn performed there. Fortunately, the United States did end up receiving some games that are still fantastic to play today. Games that go beyond its legacy in sales numbers and marketing mishaps, helping to define it as something more than just a PlayStation alternative with crappy third-party ports and stripped-back Sega arcade conversions. Give it a chance, and it might just surprise you. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.